as you also mentions this thing in your book of Socrates saying that I know nothing. Now, the point here is, and in Tim's Whitemarsh review on your book that was published in The Guardian, he mentions we are not sure that Socrates ever said that. And we can find this phrase in Cicero's works for the first time, who came about 300 years after Socrates. But what we can find in Symposium of Plato is a different version of this. And there Socrates is saying, I neither know nor think I know. Now, the first one that we were just talking about seems, it's logically false statement. But the later one, I neither know nor think I know. Now, this is a correct and logical thing to say. So what do you think about this?
The statement, I know that I know nothing, is clearly a paradox. What it could, of course, be taken to mean is that I know that my knowledge is provisional. In other words, what I know is that what I think I know may not be the case. Now, is it quite so paradoxical? Does that knowledge of not knowing quite that everything is the case, is it that itself provisional? In other words, could you then say, actually, there's a possibility that I really do know? I don't think that that's the point. I think the point that Socrates is making is that we all think we know things, but when we look into them, we can't be absolutely sure that we've got the truth. And maybe that goes for knowledge itself. The idea of knowing anything may itself be provisional. But the key thing is that there are objects of knowledge which human beings believe they have a grasp of. Things like what it is to be good, or what it is to be courageous, or what it is to love. And he says, I realize that when I think more deeply in these areas, that my knowledge is not as stable as I tended to think it was. And indeed, it isn't the case that other human beings who think they know things really are mistaken about their knowledge. So there's a kind of negative side to this, which is not that we're trying to find that, there is such a thing as courage and truth and love and so on, but that what you think and what I think about these things needs to be questioned. And this was one of the key points of the Socratic method, that you subject to continuous examination. The Greek word is elenkos, the ideas that you seem to take for granted, the assumptions that you make. You subject them to questioning, and you discover that they're not true in every case, and they're not true in many cases that you think they are true. So that's the point that Socrates keeps on making throughout his philosophical career, as portrayed by Plato in the dialogues. But there is a big exception, and that is in the dialogue, the Symposium that we've spoken about, where Socrates says, one thing I do know, and that is the truth about love. So for someone who is famous for saying that he doesn't really know everything that people think that they do know about, or that he should know about, it is quite an extraordinary statement that something as massive as the notion of love is something that Socrates is prepared to say he does know the truth about. It's not quite the same as saying, I know what love is, but he does say, I'm going to tell you the truth about love. In other words, the implication is he does know what love is. And he says, I'll tell you the truth about it because I was taught that truth by a very clever woman. And he names that woman Diotima, Diotima in Greek. And he then goes on to expound the doctrine of love as apparently given to him by Diotima on more than one occasion. So he clearly is portrayed as having met this woman as a younger man on more than one occasion and elicited from her a doctrine about the meaning of love, eros in Greek. The god of love is eros, but also the notion of love, of passionate love, is the word from which we get erotic.